the whole world at our feet, watching seasons change. Our roads were lined with adventure, mountains in the way couldn't keep us from the sea. Here we stand, open arms. This is home where we are, ever strong in the world that we made. I still hear you in the breeze, see your shadow seasons change. Our roads were lined with adventure. Mountains in the way couldn't keep us from the sea. Here we stand, open arms. This is home where we are, ever strong in the world that we made. I still hear you in the breeze, see your shadows in the trees, holding on, memories never change.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of DIGGITY Podcast. Today, I am joined by Evan, yet again. Jeff is on a business trip, so I called up my trusty Evan from the far right bench.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. No, Evan is joining me yet again, and I am so thankful that he is very, very helpful and can hop on whenever I need him most of the time. So I appreciate you hopping on. Evan, go ahead and tell the fine people where you're from.
I am from the WASD and Beyond podcast. I almost, for whatever reason, was like, why does he want me to tell them my address?
Tell the people where you live.
Yeah.
So when you piss them off here in a very, very short period of time, they know where to find you.
Don't forget to tell them your social security while you're at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I am from the WASD and Beyond podcast, also a part of the Spawn Camp Network. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and all your podcast websites at WASD and Beyond or Beyond WASD. That last one's for the socials, and then or go to the website for spawncamp.co, which is www.spawncamp.co, if I remember correctly, and you'll find all of us.
Absolutely.
Everybody. You'll find me and Brody and the Build Bros and a soon-to-be hopefully resurgent OBO.
I think it'll be coming back.
I'm really excited.
That's going to be my pitch for our next big get-together. I want to bring OBO back.
Yeah, Nick wants it too. He's been hankering for it, I think. Yeah.
That's his free therapy. That's why he wants it back.
He's like, dude, I've been going crazy. I haven't been able to talk about my childhood.
His childhood trauma. But anyway, we appreciate you guys joining us tonight, or whenever you're listening to us. But as Evan said, we are a part of Spawn Camp Network, which is a network of cool podcasts. And I mean, honestly, at this point, we just kind of do all sorts of different stuff. There's not always just podcasts. We do other sorts of videos and things that go up on our YouTube channel. And you can find us, as Evan said, spawncamp.co, and that's our website. That'll give you links to just about anywhere you want to go. And we also have a new community Discord that we have been trying to plug and get people to join because we want to build this community and make it more than just us speaking into microphones to you. We want to be able to have a cool place for people to hang out and play games and talk about random things. My name doppelganger just joined, which is awesome.
That was pretty cool.
That was one of the weirdest, it completely threw me off because I knew, who hasn't Googled themselves at one point in time just to see what comes up, right?
Sure.
So I've Googled myself and I knew there was another Brody Foltz, which is a very, it's not a common name. It's not like my name's Mike Smith or anything, right? And so I knew of the existence of this guy. And then next thing you know, someone joined the Discord named Brodacious. I'm like, what the fuck is that all about? And I went to, I clicked on his profile and it brought up his PlayStation name and stuff like that. And it was I'm not doxing the guy because I don't remember what it was, but one way or another, it was B Foltz or something like that. But the numbers were different than what I would typically use. I was like, this is so fucking weird. So then I looked it up or I Googled specifically one of his names and it brought it up. I'm like, sure as shit, that is the name doppelganger that I knew existed, but did not expect to ever have them, in our podcast network Discord channel. It was very bizarre. But he said he literally started listening to the show just because we had the same name, and he said he enjoys what we do. So it's cool. It's really, really cool.
Funny.
But
that was cool.
Moving on out of this forever intro here, we are probably going to piss some people off today, and I am deeply, deeply sorry. But this whole episode,
he's secretly excited.
I'm actually really excited. It's so exciting. But basically, this whole episode is going to be about the most reliable gaming companies, and while that sounds positive in and of itself, this is probably also going to be a trip down memory lane to, the days when other companies used to be the most reliable and now have fallen from that grace and kind of, it's not going to be all positive, but I hope we do stay somewhat positive, obviously. But sure. We're going to get into the good, the bad, and the ugly of game companies and kind of what that means as far as the games we get and how many patches it takes to actually make the game playable or whatever it may be. And since you are the esteemed guest here, I'm going to let you start with the first company you want to bring up. This is not like a top 5 list or anything like that. This is just talking about it.
For me, most reliable, I'd say in recent memory, I'd say probably in terms of what you just said of like how many patches it takes for a game to start working or like get to what we were supposed to have, I'd probably say Rockstar. I'd say they're usually pretty consistent in terms of maybe not. I know in the case of Red Dead, because I know there's a lot of Red Dead 2 fans out there, myself included, who have not gotten a lot of content that we really would like compared to GTA.
Yeah.
But I found like GTA 5 when I remember somewhat well of playing it when I was like 13, and I was like, this is awesome. It was the first GTA game that I had really played. I got to play a little bit of 4 like before that happened, but like still I was really excited to be able to play 5 because I was, when I was growing up, my dad would play it, my cousin would play it, and they were like, yeah, GTA. And I was like, I want to play it. And they'd be like, no, you can't play it. It was like this one game I couldn't play, right? I could play Left 4 Dead, I could play Medal of Honor, but I couldn't play GTA. And I just never knew why. And then I was able to, and I was like, this is awesome. And I remember it working very well. I remember like enjoying the driving and all that kind of stuff. Again, being a 13-year-old kid, I don't think your expectations are very high. But growing up, even now, I still find it impressive for the time of when it came out. Of it looks great. It arguably has still pretty exciting missions, more or less. Some of them, not all of them, obviously. Not every one can be perfect, or not every mission can be perfect. But Red Dead 2 suffers from that sort of thing. But like just certain missions where it's like you kind of just go riding here, talk to some people, and then you go somewhere else. But in terms of that aspect of the game just working, I've always found Rockstar to be pretty good with that stuff. For me, I didn't play the GTA trilogy that they just came out with. I didn't play it, but that also was not developed by them. That was just a published game. They did not make that. They did not go back and do that themselves. But Red Dead 2 worked great. I mean, on my base PlayStation 4 when I was able to play it, ran like crap, but I mean, that's kind of what you expect. I think with a game like that, you don't really expect like a first generation PlayStation to really do the job. But then getting it on PC, playing it, ran flawlessly or mostly well on an older system, and then now with my newer rig, beautiful, right? And missions are still so much fun. So little in terms of the story, so little bugs. In terms of multiplayer, very little bugs in terms of game breaking or just issues like that. Most issues when it comes to, I'd say most Rockstar games are the people. You can't really.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's kind of their job, kind of not their job. Like, I mean, they can do what they can, but like there's going to be, everybody's already getting a workaround for the next thing as soon as it comes out, right? They're already figuring it out. So yeah, for me, I'd say Rockstar is kind of at the higher up top of my list, almost, even though we're not making lists like you said, but like up there in terms of their reliability of just being, they're going to deliver when something, when they say, hey, this is the next entry in GTA 6, you can almost be certain that it's going to be something. I mean, think of how they talk about it, right?
Yeah.
They only just announced it earlier this year. They were just working on it. They didn't give a date. They didn't show a picture, video, nothing. And it's like kind of the same thing for Red Dead. They were like, we've been working on it. We'll let you know when it's ready, kind of thing. Although they did delay Red Dead a couple times, but I mean, hopefully that's not the same with GTA 6.
So I agree that typically Rockstar is pretty spot on, right? Granted, we also have not had many releases from them in the past like decade. So
yes.
I guess it's kind of easy when you, but at the same time, a lot of games have, most games or most studios are only putting out about that anyway. It just seems bizarre to think about, right? Because GTA 5 came out so long ago. I will say that. I know they didn't do the work on the trilogy remaster, but the name or the fact that their name is on it, I wish that they would have been a little bit more careful with that, right? And what that means to people, like, oh, hey, this is like GTA remastered games, and like people are excited for it, and for that to be as bad as it was a big miss for Rockstar to just release that, right? And some of that may have not even really gone through Rockstar, right? That could have been a lot more 2K at that point.
That's
or Take-Two, Take-Two.
But
that's neither here or there, but
it's still a blotch.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I think, Red Dead, like you said, is an absolute masterpiece. Like I think what they've done with that game, even though the online is leaves a lot to be desired. I think the actual overall kind of experience that they brought with just the single player alone was just incredible, and it really just kind of worked, right? Like, and that's something that is one of those things that we don't see all that often, unfortunately, where it is, yeah, this game didn't work, or this didn't function properly right out the gate. And that game really, for the most part, was pretty flawless. I do remember GTA when it first launched. The single player worked really well, but when they tried to start up the online service, it was garbage. Like, it was very, very bad right off the bat.
Yeah.
And that was really the only misstep I can think of in recent years from them. That, and even then, like, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? Like, it was the first time they tried to do an online for a GTA game of that nature, and it was
the way it was.
Yeah, and at this point, it's this absolute powerhouse. So it took a little bit to get that going, but even then, I don't think it was all that long before it was really, like, I mean, incredible. So yeah,
I'm trying to remember the timeline of it, because GTA 4 was a lobby-based thing. You had to just invite people or just have a lobby and wait for people to join. Whereas, online for GTA 5 was like, no, you just hit online and you just get thrown in there with people in a certain random spot. I mean, granted, you had your intro section stuff, but like after that, it was just like that. So, yeah, I remember it not working very well either. Once you because they did that with Red Dead as well, where they waited a month, and that's, I think, in two reasons, right? I think especially for Red Dead, and I could see it as well for GTA, but I almost saw it more as what they tried to mean for it when Red Dead 2 came out, was like, we're not doing it for a month because it gives us the time to get the systems in place, but also because it's like, this is arguably, I feel like they could have just done without an online component completely, and it would have been even higher on people's lists, or like higher still now, where it's like a Last of Us 2 thing, right? Like, or a God of War. Like, it's just single player, it's just a story, that's all you're there for. And granted, the nice thing about Red Dead that those other two games don't really have is, or God of War you can, but I don't know, I never really did it that way. But like Red Dead 2, once you're done with the story and you've completed everything, it's just free roam adventure, have fun, go hunt animals, go rob trains, people, do the side missions that you missed out on, go hunt the legendary animals, all that kind of stuff. Like, there's so much more that you can do in just the single player. I've never 100%ed the single player because there's just so much. You have like 15 different sections of challenges, plus all the legendary animals, plus all the card collecting and random, like, unique weapon skin finds that you can do, all those side, random encounters, side quests, all that stuff. Like, it's huge.
Yeah.
But
it is really incredible what they have done with that. It's just, Rockstar is really in their own realm when it comes to those kinds of things, and I love seeing it.
They push that open world concept again, right? And I thought that was funny because that happened, and then arguably what is, in terms of just their last release, a very unreliable company, CD Projekt Red, that was supposed to be the next envelope pusher for an open world, and it just completely flopped. So it's like, everybody's like, oh, this is like the Red Dead killer, and I loved that. People were like, that's the title to beat in terms of an open world single player kind of thing, like free roam stuff. Like, the thing to beat now is Red Dead 2, so you have to beat that. And I'm sure, CDPR tried as hard as they did, and I feel bad for a lot of those developers, but it just couldn't do it. And I don't think trailers and everything else, it might have had a chance, but as soon as you kind of load it up and get into it, you might not really.
Yeah.
In terms of the content and the quality of it, it's really doesn't hold a candle very well, I'd say.
Yeah.
But
fair enough.
Yeah, no, Rockstar's up there for me, definitely.
So I was actually going to give you, I figured you wouldn't go Naughty Dog right off the bat.
You didn't think I would? Wow. Okay.
No, I did think you were going to go straight for
okay.
Naughty Dog, because I know that's one of your favorites, but I'm going to bring them up.
Sure.
And actually, I personally think, even though I'm not typically a fan of their games, that's just me.
Sure.
I think what they have done and how polished their experiences typically are is incredible. I think they are able to put out some of the best overall games in as far as a storytelling, because they're usually like a narrative story, right? Like, there's not mostly they do some online stuff here and there, but it's not their bread and butter. Their bread and butter is, the Last of Us or Uncharted or whatever it may be.
I think the last multiplayer was Last of Us 1 or Uncharted 3. I don't think Uncharted 4 or Last of Us. I know Uncharted or Last of Us Part 2 didn't have it. I don't think Uncharted 4 had multiplayer either.
Yeah.
I think that Uncharted 3 or Last of Us 1, whichever one of those came out after the other, that was the last one they did multiplayer with. Yeah, the last Uncharted and Last of Us were, solely narrative. And most of them, realistically, while they have them, you're really not going to play them for that, I guess. Like,
Right.
I don't see people going and saying, I'm going to buy The Last of Us to play the multiplayer, right? I never really hear that from anybody. Or I'm going to buy Uncharted to play, like, Team Deathmatch. It just doesn't really hit the same way, I guess. But yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was just really, I don't have a whole lot to say because I'm not a massive fan of their games, and that's just a personal opinion. That's
sure.
just I've the older I get, the more I find myself not getting invested into stories in games. I am solely trying to take my mind off of everything. So I'm playing. I enjoy playing somewhat mindless things. Like Elden Ring was kind of a difference from that, where it is like I was invested in the builds and some of the numbers games that come with that and the concentration that comes with it. But focusing on a narrative anymore has been something that I have struggled with in games, where I'll get done with a game and I'll be like, what happened? Like pull a full on Nick and just be like, wait,
what happened?
Oh, or I'll just kind of piece it together at the end. But anymore, I hate to skip cutscenes. I don't like to do that. I still like to halfway pay attention, but it's also, I have definitely picked up my phone during a cutscene and like I'm listening, but I'm also like scrolling Reddit or whatever it may be, or Twitter or whatever. And so it's a weird thing for me where Naughty Dog games I've just bounced off of. Now, if I would have played them 10 years ago, I may have loved them. Like I may have completely invested myself into them and been like the biggest fan ever, but it just never hit with me, right? And like BioShock is an example of a narrative game that I have not gone back to since I beat them years and years ago. And
wow,
so I'd love to go back to them, but I almost don't want to taint what I have in my mind of what that game is or that series is, because I just don't enjoy narrative games in the same way I used to. Like some of my favorite games have been, something of like Elden Ring, where the narrative is there, but whatever, right?
You're not like really going for it, yeah.
Now I will say God of War was a standout in that regard. And I enjoyed the Spider-Man games too, but even those are relatively light on narrative. Like there's narrative there, but how important is it really at the end of the day, right?
Right, yeah.
You're just pushing a reason to go out there and kick somebody's ass.
Give him more powers. Yeah, give him another gadget. Right. Yeah, you're just kind of finding a way to make that work.
But yeah, I absolutely give Naughty Dog props. I think overall their games just, again, they just work when they come out for the most part. Yeah, there's a few things here and there, but the size and the capacity of these games anymore are so much larger to where you look at something of like the NES era, right? Or the SNES era even. Like you look at something like that and you're like, oh my gosh, like these came out and they were perfect because they couldn't take patches anymore. And it's like,
they had to be good.
They had to be good, right? They had to take that time, which I think is a detriment and also a positive all at the same time, where it is this thing where they're like, oh, we'll patch it later. And so games do tend to come out a little bit more broken than usual, but at the same time, games are so much larger and the graphic fidelity is so much higher, and everything about the game is on a scale that makes the SNES games look like Tinker Toys, right? Like these are nothing
absolutely.
in terms of scale alone. Like they don't match up, right? And so it's kind of hard to make that argument that like, oh, well, games are just bad now, because I don't think that's necessarily the case. There's just so much more to look at, right? Like you look at a game, and you look at a game like Assassin's Creed or something like that, even though I've bounced off those games as of recently too. I say recently, but I mean for a long time. And those games are buggy, but they're also massive, and there's so much going on, and this
there's
and that.
There's a lot to do.
Yeah, and it's hard to expect all of that to be perfect, right? And I'm not making an excuse for that by any means, because again, I haven't played through an Assassin's Creed game since 3, I think.
Which one are you thinking of?
The
3 was Revolutionary War.
Yep, that one. That was the last one I played all the way through.
I think last one for me, I was just watching the trailer for it, Unity. I was watching, and that's why I played it, because I was like, the trailer's so good. And you brought up a good point with the SNES stuff, is that gamers now, I'd say, versus gamers then, they are expecting more. So not only are they expecting it to look prettier, the game itself in terms of a story to be longer or the world to be bigger, they're expecting side quests, they're expecting collectibles, they're expecting, like, you played through a game on the SNES, you played through the story, you had some things to do maybe alongside it, like little collectibles or whatever, and that was it. But now it's like you load into Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I think it was.
Yep.
You have the story, you have side quests, you have already DLC that adds even more story to it, that's just like all out and whatever, it's in deals with like the Norse gods, and you have weapons and builds and all this, like, conversations, relationships, depending on certain games like Mass Effect, right? You have Mass Effect has side quests and the main story, relationships to build with each of your crewmates, and all this other stuff. And it's like, yeah, you can't really, it's apples to oranges as far as I'm concerned, where it's
Absolutely.
like you can't really like play Assassin's Creed 1. There's probably maybe a couple side quests, most of it's story, and you got 3 small-ish cities.
Yeah.
Whereas you go and play Assassin's Creed Unity, you have the whole of Paris, which is more than those 3 cities combined at that point, along with side quests, along with builds, multiple weapons, armor sets, all this stuff, right? Like, it's not fair to really compare them.
Well, and in regards to the first Assassin's Creed, I beat that game twice. Like when it came out to some extent.
Yeah.
I guess it was a little bit after, but I remember beating the game on my console, and then I beat it on my buddy's console too, because he wanted the achievements from it, but he didn't want to play through it. And at that time, that was a incredibly long game. Like, granted, now it's like, I think it's like a 20-hour experience, maybe, if even, like 15, 20 hours. Now you get a game that's like 15, 20 hours, you're like, oh, that was kind of short. Like, I mean...
Do you think it's longer because you're playing through most of the story on Assassin's Creed 1, whereas, like, okay, GTA 5 is like a 40, 50-hour game. Or Red Dead 2, they said, was 60 hours just to beat the main story, not including the epilogue.
Oh, so, my gosh. I had like 80 hours in Red Dead 2 when I stopped playing. And that was... like, I was doing some side stuff, but that was, I mean, somewhat streamlining it, I guess. I mean, it's...
Wow, okay.
It's I don't know. I guess I did a lot of side stuff, and
I did a lot of things, too, so I could never really, like, count. It's like, oh, I'm at 60 hours, but I'm, like, kind of close to the end, but not really.
Right.
So, like, I don't know if it's necessarily accurate. I believe that in their own playtest, the same thing. I mean, everybody says a different number, right?
Yeah.
Like, Dying Light 2, they said it would be 500 hours to beat everything multiple times over, but... if you went and just did the story, it was 20 hours. And I don't know. I did a little bit of side stuff, but I mostly stuck to it. And I have 30 hours in it. And that would be accurate. I mean, I did probably played around with, Nick and John a couple times and just kind of goofed around. So that's about right. Cause that was right at the end. I've never finished the game because the game bugged out. So I can't even play through the final. It actually thinks that I finished the game because I Alt F4 during a cutscene, not the ending cutscene. I just Alt F4 during a cutscene during the last mission. And now whenever I load it up, they're like, yeah, wait for the next mission to start. And then it never starts. It's just like,
no.
I'd have to restart the game to do it. And it's like, I'm not going through the whole tutorial learning how to run. Again,
Yeah.
Running's easy. You put one foot in front of the other really fast. Like, I can figure it out. But yeah, no, I like that you brought up Naughty Dog, because I'm like you said, I'm a huge fan and I love everything that they've really ever done. The Uncharted series is huge as a kid for me, just growing up, because I loved the snappiness of the characters, the sarcasm, and it was the first real, I'd say, probably narrative game I played of like, I'm fully invested in what Nathan Drake's going to do. And then Last of Us came out, and I remember it came out, the first one, when it came out, I just saw that it came out that day. And I was like, I remember the trailer, it looked really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, even then I still didn't even really remember the trailer, but I was like, oh, I remember a lot of grass and like buildings. And like, that's all I really remembered. And I was like, I want to play it. And I asked my dad if I could get it the same day. And I did. And I was playing it. And right then I knew I was in for something different, because within 20 minutes, a girl named Sarah, who's Joel's daughter, who's about my age, just gets shot and killed. and I was like, I am in for a completely different thing than Uncharted.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I had no idea what to expect, and then that kind of, maybe I was probably too young to play it realistically, but I was like,
Say it worked out all right for you.
I was gonna say it's shaped what I think is a good story now, because I mean, I essentially grew up with Ellie in terms of age. Like I grew up with that sense of, I kind of understand her uneasiness in terms of just being young, and then now it's like I still kind of understand her anxiety. You can tell, I could tell when she was having an anxiety attack in the second game because I've had them, you know. So it's like it's that ability for me that connects me to certain games. But I'm also very different, I'd say, in regards to how you play narrative, or how you play narrative games now. Like I am all about narrative games, and I do not like, I've started to play Death Stranding again because I just had a hankering for delivering packages, and
Amazon's probably hiring.
I don't know if it's exactly the same thing I'd want to do, but like I've never finished it, and I want to finish it, and I've had kind of this, you know, I want to go back and do it, but whenever I sit down and it's like in the middle of the day, if I've got something else going on later, I don't play it, because it's like I want to just, if I'm in Discord, in Discord, I just have the volume in the game all the way up, so I can't even hear anybody anyway. I might as well just leave.
Right.
Like I'm trying to fully invest into it, listen to the music and the score and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very different in that. I really love narrative, and I can spend all day playing single player games than I could playing like Overwatch. Even if it wasn't as rage inducing as it is, I don't think I could spend all day playing multiplayer games. I would just get
I think
bored.
I think part of the reason I also don't get into narrative games as much is because gaming is such a social experience anymore. And exactly that, where I can't sit and in a Discord call or even in like a PlayStation party or something like that and play a narrative game while talking to other people. Because even though I'm like half spaced out on the story anyway, I still want to listen and absorb it somehow. And so it will drive me absolutely nuts. I will purposely not join calls, I will purposely not join parties until I get to a stopping point, and then I'll go play something else because I just can't. And so anymore, like if I hop on and play something on PC, I'm hopping in a Discord call to talk to everybody, or I'm hopping in a party on PlayStation. Like I will purposely pick where I'm going to play games at depending on who's online and where they're at. You know, like a lot of times I'll check and see, you know, if Jeff's online or something, I'll hop on and play a game with him, or I'll look and see who's in the Discord and I'll hop in there and chat with you guys and stuff, and just kind of see, you know, like on the weekends, the Discord gets pretty vibe. Yeah, exactly. Like on weekends, the Discord gets a little quiet, but obviously, you know, people have lives and I don't, so whatever. But
I'm always here.
Right. I can always count on Evan being there.
Oh yeah. I got nothing going on.
But yeah, that is kind of that weird thing of like I respect the hell out of what Naughty Dog puts out there. Their games just don't do anything for me particularly. I can sit here and acknowledge they're a good time. Like I will blow you shit about The Last of Us forever just because I know it's deep down, like I know, not even deep down, I know it's a good game. I just have to bust your balls about it.
I get it. I you know, it's funny. You would hate me if I like lived with you, or if I was like your third kid, because I would tell you all the time, Dad, you got to play Last of Us Part 2, because I did that to my dad, and I forced him essentially to play Last of Us 1. And he liked it. He thought it was good. And then it was Last of Us 2. It was already out. And I was like, play the second one. And he got like halfway through until where I'm guessing a decent amount of people, I'd say probably most people that weren't really fans of it. Like my dad liked it, but he didn't like it as much as I did. Yeah. So when he got to the part where he had to play Abby, he just stopped. And I was like, no, I'm like, this is where you have to go. I'm like, I promise. I'm like, it sucks, but like, come on, bro. You watched 6 seasons of The Sopranos, and you got to know at least a season of that could have probably been cut. Like, come on, like you got to go through some pain. And he still never finished it, and it hurts me every day. I'm like, come on, dude, just play. Yeah. You've only got like 20 hours. It's only like you could finish it in a day. Like, come on.
Just sit down, don't do anything else, no bathroom breaks, go.
I'm gonna walk in with like a toy gun next time and be like, you better play it. You better play it. Like,
load it up
now. I was like, I did not buy the Ellie edition for it to just be used by me.
Right. So you got another developer for me here?
In terms of reliability, I actually kind of thought about. I kind of am split between these two. I thought of it actually just in our just previous conversation. I thought about BioWare in terms of the Mass Effect stuff. That's probably not very. Yeah, maybe not.
As of recent,
I think BioWare, and I thought Anthem, and I was like, not good.
Yeah, Anthem and also Andromeda, like.
Andromeda, I think it's a lot of crap.
Well, I think they fixed some of it after the fact, because at launch that was rough. That was
I only remember
rough.
the facial animations being wonky. I don't remember any gameplay stuff, but I
do
remember
the gameplay
the facial
was pretty
stuff.
solid.
Yeah, the game, the facial animations were definitely wonky. Anthem. The funny thing is I think that for me, and I talked about this yesterday with a buddy of mine, that bugs are very subjective when it comes to games.
That's fair.
Like, I'm not necessarily going to experience all the same bugs that you are. Great example. Right. Our buddy Noah got to play Star Citizen for a bit, and he just has had the worst of times with it. It just didn't run. Everything broke all the time, which is not, in terms of the same amount of time or same period of time playing, not at all what I experienced. So it's very subjective. So for me, a reliable company, when I thought about BioWare, was I enjoyed Anthem. Like, I liked the armor suits. I liked the feeling of being like an Iron Man style character. I thought the gameplay was a bit repetitive, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. I thought it was interesting. I've loved all the Mass Effect games. Andromeda, I actually did never finish, but I've always wanted to go back to it because I'm like, I really care about the story. I like space stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so that's definitely for it. And then so that was part of it. They're definitely kind of up there just for me personally. But one I think that you and I could both agree on was, and I cannot remember the name. I feel so bad. I think it's 2K, or it's a studio from 2K, the BioShock series. I don't know if they had a specific name.
They're under Take-Two.
Or Take-Two now, not 2K. Sorry.
Who did the BioShock series? Why can't I? It's like right on the tip of my tongue, and I cannot.
I'm looking
for the
at
life
it now
of me.
on the store page. Like, I'm trying to find.
Oh, you're right. It is 2K. 2K
Boston.
was 2K Games, Irrational Games, Feral Interactive.
I think that maybe a better one would be. Well, Irrational Games is what's making the new one, isn't it? No, I don't know. Irrational Games made BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
So, like, probably just that, and along with some 2K studios.
I mean, the big one there was like Ken Levine was head on that, right? And that's right. Kind of where a lot of the credit tends to go. But yeah, it was 2K Boston that did the first BioShock game, because that was before 2K had really like branched into too much. I mean, because this was back in 2007.
Yeah, but those guys who made all three BioShocks and this DLCs for Infinite, up there. Like,
yeah, fair.
3 masterpieces as far as I'm concerned. I tried to play 2, or I did play through most of 2 a while ago. I played through 1, Infinite, and 2, and I just couldn't. 2 just wasn't grabbing me. I think it's underrated still, but I just couldn't. I was getting bored of the repetitiveness.
Yeah, and it went in a very different direction. Like, playing as a Big Daddy is a lot different experience than running from a Big Daddy.
Yeah, well, I probably would have been better off if I didn't play 1 and then 2 right like succession. Good show, watch it. I don't know why I plugged them.
That was strange.
That was
not
weird.
Sponsored.
Not sponsored by HBO. But yeah, like the BioShock devs really, like, as a company or like studio, really have me. So they're good, and Rocksteady.
Okay, yeah.
I think in terms of
I think
Arkham games,
one thing that I would take away from them is their PC port was abysmal
for
launch.
Arkham Knight.
Yeah, that was
it was pretty bad.
And even then, like, everybody's gonna have a misstep here and there, and I'm not saying that as, oh, well, fuck them. Like, that's not what I'm getting
it's
at.
It's more that's it.
It's more just like, hey, absolutely, like, Rocksteady puts out fucking fantastic games, but then they had a mishap, right? They had a bad PC port that left a little bit of a stain, I guess, right? And I don't think too many people, obviously PC players were a little salty about it, but but I think in the grand scheme of things, Rocksteady is still looked at in a very positive light.
I would
all
hope
things
so.
considered, and I guess Suicide Squad. We'll see how that comes out,
We'll
and see if they can maintain that good reputation that they have, and I hope they do, because I really
hope so.
could be a awesome game, and I could be really excited for that.
this might be not. I don't think it necessarily, or I don't think it should take away that mishap they had with the PC port. But now, as far as I know, it runs pretty well.
Yeah.
I do have a pretty decent system though, but I'm able to run things fairly easy. There are also, it probably just took a little bit of time, but people, I'm assuming somewhat quick, or hopefully within the span of like 3 to 6 months, they made tools to unlock the frame rates and take away some of the stuff. Cause it's going to be difficult for computers at that time to, I think, not run rain all the time, but it was difficult because of the way they implemented that rain. Because for consoles, it was like that's all it was, right? It just worked that way, and it worked fine. I remember I played it first and beat it on a console, so I remember it ran decent then. But now I can play it on I still have it downloaded on my computer, and I just go back to it and I just do like the little challenges, like the fighting challenges from time to time. So like and the game itself is still, in terms of a narrative, in terms of it just working, all of them worked pretty well and had a decent narrative. It was Arkham Asylum, Knight, Origins, but that was made by Warner Brothers, right? And then Knight, and they were all, and those three from them were all pretty fantastic. It was nice to see a continuation. It wasn't just Batman Arkham Asylum and then Arkham City. That was the one I forgot, not Origins or whatever.
City. Yep.
City was like, I loved it because it was a continuation. Joker was scarred and all the stuff from the Titan stuff that he had in the first game, so I love that it continued and all that kind of stuff. Although I will say one thing that kind of left me wanting more was that Bruce Wayne Batman doesn't really change through any of those three,
right?
Like, he doesn't stop pulling his punch. Like, it's almost like he's too perfect of a Batman, and I think that's probably due to the fact of I've been spoiled with like the Batman from Matt Reeves this year, that I'm kind of having that thought, and also the Christopher Nolan trilogy, where Batman in that is arguably like simple in terms of he just comes back to Gotham and knows his mission, but like he's got his flaws. He fails to save certain people and all that kind of stuff, and I liked that because he's a flawed character, and through the games he feels pretty like he can do no
almost
wrong. I know that the voice actor they had for him, Kevin Conroy, is like the voice actor for Batman. Like people will often think of him, but I almost kind of was like, I want a bit more than just like regular Batman and then somewhat angry Batman, like mildly irritated Batman. I wanted I wanted voice cracks, bro. I wanted him to be just
a little bit more
right.
gruff. I
wanted to be a bit more brutal.
I want mildly inconvenienced Batman.
Well, it was like I played through Knight earlier this year, and I was playing through it, and he's always pretty simple, right? He's always like, Alfred, do this, or Selena, you can't do that, or whatever. He's very normal.
I think to some extent that is just because at that point he's a very experienced Batman too. So he's already seen it all. He's already
that's a good point.
He's already fought Joker a million times. He's already, all of these different things that he's done. I think that is where some of that comes from, because he, he's very experienced. He already knows what he's getting into. And I think that is more of, and I don't know if that was the thought process behind it, but that's kind of what I always equated it to, because at this point, he's been doing this a long time.
Yeah, he has been doing it for quite a bit. Sure.
I mean, because you also have, Drake as Nightwing, right? So he's definitely, at least 10 years into it, if not longer.
He has Drake, and who's one of the other Robins?
Well, one of the games goes into the whole Jason Todd thing, and you
Jason
also
Todd
have
is Arkham Knight, yeah.
Oh God, what is there's Drake is not Nightwing. Drake is the other Robin. It's Tim Drake
Dick
is
Grayson.
Yeah, Dick Grayson. There we go. I knew I was like, that doesn't sound right. Yeah, I was thinking of like the flying Graysons and everything, trying to get there.
So that's 3 Robins then in Arkham Knight, because you've got Tim Drake, who's the new one. Yeah, Dick Grayson is now Nightwing, and then Jason Todd is the Arkham Knight or whatever.
Right.
And
spoiler alert for a 10-year-old game, or not quite that old, but
it's like 8
years.
It's getting in age, but like I remember playing through it recently, and I'm like, he's pretty normal throughout the whole thing, and then he says to like Joker in his mind at the end or whatever, and he's like, I am Batman, I am the Knight, and I'm like, you just sound like he spilled coffee on your pants. Like, you don't even sound like you're pissed off. Like, you just sound like, oh dude, damn it, like why'd you have to? I'm like, could you have done anything? Like, I don't blame him. I think that he's a great voice actor, but I felt it was kind of like stilted.
Yeah,
it was just very much
I can see
like,
that.
here's the lines, Kevin, do the Batman voice. And it was kind of like that. And it serves its purpose for most of it, but I wanted almost you get progression through the world and the characters aside from Batman, and Batman kind of feels very stationary, which could be because he's just been doing it forever that he gets it. But yeah, he definitely just felt kind of, that was the only probably takeaway I had. The combat it's one of those things, right? They did it in Arkham Asylum, and now it's just a staple, and I hope they never take it away.
I mean,
like, I don't want it to change.
Even the new Spider-Man games are more or less that, right? Like, they're very, very similar to Arkham style fighting.
Defined it.
Right,
like,
yeah.
It was like, this is the easiest way to do it. Why would you do it any differently?
Yeah, they basically made like a genre, right? To some extent within that adventure action game.
Right, I see. Yeah, like, I mean, it's almost going to feel weird if you went back to a different Batman game and that wasn't the, control scheme. Like, X is to punch, Y is to counter, and then like you have B does the stun. It's like you can't really beat that, and then you just hit those buttons and different variations of those with the triggers to do combos. Like, it's the simplest thing ever. I would not want that. I hope for Suicide Squad it's more or less that.
Yeah,
like,
I'm okay with that.
Like, you have like a winning formula, arguably a formula that just can kind of stay there, and as far as I know, never really has to change. Like, I'd be perfectly content with it for the rest of those types of games.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so like, I kind of named 3 there, but
you're good.
BioWare. Now that I named the guys who made BioShock and games, we can kick BioWare out of there. I mean, I do love their Mass Effect games, but in terms of reliability, in terms of the last 10 years, they don't really reach that mark for anybody. Probably me too.
I wanted to give some love to an indie developer. So Yacht Club Games.
What do they make?
They make Shovel Knight.
Oh, nice.
So
I never played it, but I've watched people play it. It looks good.
Yeah, the first like original just Shovel Knight was fantastic, and I got in kind of late, so it was well after it had already been pretty much completed and everything. So I wasn't along for the whole like fleshing it out and everything process, but I think I'm kind of looking at them more in a different term of reliable, in the fact that they had these Kickstarter goals and they had all of these things, and they are one of the few companies that I have ever seen that actually followed through on all of that. They went above and beyond. They put out all of this DLC for free. If you bought the original Shovel Knight, you got all of these DLCs, and they continued to update it and do so many different things. And the way that they just showed their love to this complete like project that they did, I think is just incredible to watch and see. And in a realm where there are a lot of Kickstarters, and some of them are not the best, and some of them are pretty unreliable, and like, not to completely shit on Star Citizen, but like, to some regard, this has been one of the longest and most not productive, but most what's the term I want? It's brought in the most amount of money, right, out of any Kickstarter ever. Yeah, there we go. My brain just shut off.
Do you remember?
It was well over $1 million, I believe.
Shovel Knight.
Oh, Yacht Club. I'm not sure. But
Yacht Club.
Star
Yacht
Citizen.
Club. I can look.
In that regard, like where Yacht Club has entirely delivered, and granted there is a simpler game than what Star Citizen is and everything, but like there's always that overhanging like I mean, there's a whole subreddit devoted to Star Citizen refunds, right? And things of that nature, where there's this overhanging, like, it's a scam. Well, it's not entirely a scam. There is a game kind of there, but
it's a really good tech demo, I'd say. Not even good, but like, it's a functioning tech demo right now, and that changes. I mean, with game development, it's just not. I have no experience, but like, following along as I have with the limited knowledge I have of game development and just how things like that work for Star Citizen, Right, it's a process that takes a long time, and I don't know the case for Yacht Club Games and how it worked for them making their games and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But for Star Citizen, and I've told you this, and I know I've told my friends this, is that imagine like you're building a new model of you're building the Model T, right? You don't just come out with a car 6 months after you've decided you want to make a car, right? Like you've got to build the drivetrain, you got to build the engine, you got to build gears, you got to build the chassis, right? And it's like that's kind of the thing that Star Citizen has to do, is they've got to build the stuff that makes the game work 5 years later, that doesn't change. So
Right.
like, and that takes time, and I think, not to completely change the topic, but the CEO of the company, who's been in games longer than a very long time, he did the Wing Commander series, which was back in the 80s. So he's been around. It's not like he's a new guy who just got some, it's not like a NFT bro, right? Who just got a couple $1 billion and is like, I want to throw it at this, right? He didn't. He had to kickstart it and get people to invest and show that, hey, we want to do this. And with that, the scale grew, and now that's what, it's done now, more or less. They're not going to add any more gameplay or systems and whatnot, at least right now, until after the game's finished. But we're hopefully in the next year or so going to see the end of one of those big tech developments that has taken so long, right? Like I told our friend Nick, not my Nick from WASD, but our buddy who plays WoW a lot. And I was like, you can have like a couple thousand people on a server at any given moment, right? And he's like, yeah, I guess. And I was like, okay, take that and apply it to Star Citizen, but all those thousands of people are there, and they're not running on one server; they're running on like 50. But the servers are meshed together, so that way you can't tell the difference.
Right.
And I was like, that's hard to do from, I'm sure, a development perspective, and that's what they've been working on, right? So it's like, it's completely different in it, but no fault of anybody else's own, right? I think it's just, you can't compare. I don't think you can compare anything to it because of the faults they've had and the way they've done it. You can even say though, like, and I like that with like Yacht Club games, or Yacht Club games, sorry, of being like Kickstarter stuff for video games. I always enjoy, because you have a truly indie project, and not only that, I don't know anything about Yacht Club games, and I don't follow them on anything, but I love that the guys, CIG, the people who make Star Citizen, I love how open they are. Yeah, man, some for lack of a better term, some shit broke, so we're gonna be late by a couple months, and it's like, that says like, I'd rather get that, because think of what you get now. If like when Battlefield 2042 came out, right, you didn't get anything from DICE, said it's finished and ready to go, and then it wasn't. And it's like, if you had come out and DICE had just said, we had to take time, it's not going to be ready in the state that we wanted in, so you like lower your expectations, it's not going to be that. Granted, I don't know how that works in the context with EA and whatnot, but I like that when they say, hey, it doesn't work, so this next patch is going to be pretty buggy, and like some things aren't going to work, so just be warned of that, right? It's like, cool, now I know that, so when I play it, I'm not going to be like, this doesn't work, what's wrong with this? I kind of understand with it. But in a lot of other contexts of now unreliable game companies, you don't really have that. You just kind of get told, yeah, it's going to come out the same year or the same time every year, and it'll work or it won't, and we're not going to give you a time frame on when it will. I mean, still, we don't even have a time frame for Battlefield, right? Like,
yeah,
there are issues that have been plaguing the FIFA series for like the past 3 years, which I don't know how that,
probably even longer than that, right?
I'm sure longer than that, but I just remember reading about one I had this year, and they were like, yeah, it's been in for like the past 2 or 3 games, and it's like the easiest thing. It's copy and paste. Like, so how is this not fixed, right? Which is what makes me love. I don't even, like I said, I haven't even played Shovel Knight, but I already like Yacht Club games because they're an indie studio. It's like, I trust indie studios, and I'd say some indie studios are more reliable than major companies.
Oh, I 100% agree. Absolutely. Yeah. I think, with like the DICE stuff, I mean, to kind of go a little bit in a negative direction, and then I got a positive to kind of bring it back here. But I think EA has really dropped the ball in a lot of ways, right? Like FIFA and FIFA and Madden and games of that nature just kind of keep doing the same thing. But the thing is, people keep buying it, and that's why they keep doing it, right? The moment that their sales drop to a point where it is no longer profitable, now they're going to have to change something.
They got to change something, yeah.
But even then, like FIFA has now separated ways with EA, and also the NFL has signed contracts to make arcade-style games with other companies and things of that nature. So the writing is kind of somewhat on the wall, but, we've seen the most recent versions of these games, and they're still the same thing. Where I will give EA,
they'd be the same, yeah.
Yeah, where I will give EA some credit is actually with Respawn. I think Respawn does a really good job.
100%.
Apex, it's not really my style of game, so I don't follow that. But yeah, like Titanfall, beautiful. Jedi Fallen Order, really enjoyed that game too. I mean,
fantastic.
And so I think I don't want to sit here and say all of EA is bad, but there's a lot of EA that is bad. And even like Knockout City, I think that was I thought that was great. That was a cool game for what they did. And it was one of those games that their initial trailer was dog shit and nobody knew exactly what was going on. And it actually kind of painted the game in a bad light. But
then it came out and you were like, oh, yeah, this is cool. Like, I get to throw balls at my friends. Right. Like, what more would you want?
Right. It's perfect.
I agree.
So I think there are some subsections within EA that are pretty good, but yeah, I mean they're big heavy hitters like your FIFAs, your Maddens. They're soulless at this point. Battlefield. Yeah. I mean,
Battlefield is just not. Yeah.
And Battlefield has historically even come out as in a very messy state, especially
3 and 4.
Yeah, 3 and 4. Like, and I think a lot of people forget that specifically because each time a Battlefield game comes out, they're like, "Oh my god!" But this one in particular, it has taken a long time for them to fix anything, and it's soulless. And kind of like how Jeff and I talked on the last episode, we were talking about 343 and Halo, like I'm sure they want to work on it, right? Like, but it feels like playing a Halo game anymore is this soulless experience. Like, the campaign was fun, but the multiplayer is very it's paint by numbers, right? Like, it is not at all what anybody wanted and what Halo was famous for and what they should be doing with it. Like, not even having a dedicated Slayer playlist at launch is a fucking massive mistake. Like, that is the lifeblood of that series to some extent. And for Big Team Battle to be broken like it was for so long, and I still don't even know if it really works all that well, and just
I don't know.
Not having a co-op campaign. And I don't want to go on this for too long because me and Jeff really talked about it quite a bit last week, but it just seems like all of these, and 343's always been in a bad spot since they pretty much took over Halo. Like, 4 was their best game that they really put out, and after that,
and
everything's kind of
in the span of the Halo games. Is that really all that special? I guess
no, it's still below Halo 1, 2, and 3, right? And Reach, even,
and I'd argue even ODST,
especially Reach, actually. And ODST,
right? That was made by 3.
I think that was still Bungie. But yeah, it's
that was
just
good. I like that one.
It's this weird thing where it's like a lot of these heavy hitters, and even like Call of Duty to some extent, right? I still think that Call of Duty is one of the more consistent online shooters that comes out yearly, right? I
would agree.
Regardless of, I didn't care for Cold War. That was just me personally, but that's because
Vanguard was doo-doo.
Yeah, and Vanguard was not great. But I think the idea of, they're still the most consistent as far as these, when you compare it to Halo, Battlefield, and COD, the big 3, right? Now you have Bungie making Destiny, but that's kind of its own thing. And then there's Overwatch, and like those aren't really in the same realm. But yeah, if you look at the main 3 of Battlefield, COD, and Halo, like, COD is still killing it. Like, regardless, they are still doing a pretty damn good job, especially for the release schedule that they have. And Vanguard was not for me. Cold War was not for me. But the Modern Warfare reboot was great. I played the shit out of that game. And and I'm super excited for Modern Warfare 2 this year. Like, I'm actually no, you're good. I'm actually really, really looking forward to it, and that's not something that I typically would say about a COD game, right? But since the last Modern Warfare was so good, and I at least know to some extent what I'm getting into, I'm down for it. I'm ready.
Modern Warfare, the reboot, is still the only one that I will come back and play just the multiplayer. Like, I can't even play. I have only played for Cold War and Vanguard just the stories, and I still find them to be pretty, if not, like, if cliche. I mean, like, they're still pretty just. Sorry, I got a bug in here. He was trying to come and join the podcast. But like, I find the stories to be pretty, standard, but I like them, and that's why that's where my money goes to, right? And then depending on the zombies mode, I played a lot of the Cold War zombies mode. I loved it, right? Like, I thought it was actually a lot of fun. Vanguard, I really only played the story, and I played maybe a couple rounds of the multiplayer, but it wasn't for me. But yeah, like, they're super consistent. And with Halo, it's like, I didn't play Halo multiplayer match until like Halo 3, or I played it probably sooner than that, when Master Chief Collection was out, and I played Reach multiplayer, and I loved that. I still enjoyed that to a fun degree. And yeah, Halo Infinite multiplayer, I was just like, this is kind of just the same thing. Like, yeah. I tried playing it the other day, and I like to do TAC Slayer a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like that. When I had played it previously, I was like, oh, cool, I just get a battle rifle and it's just headshots. And then I loaded in and it was, well, now I got manglers or I got magnums. And it's like, just give me the gun and let me, like, why does it have to be variety? Like, I get that some people like that, but like, I don't know, maybe like, let me choose it rather. Cause I wasn't able to pick. I just loaded up into the TAC Slayer playlist. And that's what I had to play. I couldn't pick and choose, like,
right.
I want to play with battle rifles, or I want to play with magnums, or I want to play with manglers, right? I had to just play whatever they gave me. So yeah, like that. I don't like to talk about Halo a lot. I've been pretty hurt over the past like 9 weeks from the show.
Yeah, fair enough.
Bring a tear to my eye. Yeah.
Show us on the doll where the Halo series hurt you.
Everywhere. And then yeah, Battlefield is one of those things where it's like I have been playing Battlefield 4 because anytime I try to play 2042, I'm just like, man, I want to go back to the good old days. And then I'm like an old man. I play Leonard Skinner, I play Freebird, just the solo, and then I go on Operation Locker Hardcore and I just demolish people. And I feel like I'm in Kingsman. Like, I'm just flicking around, like I'm just like popping a mag out, hitting some dude in the head. Like, I'm just like a badass, like John Wick. And it's like, I would love to do that in 2042, but I can't because I have all these other things I got to pay attention. It's a hero shooter, essentially. Like, just hero shooter light. It's 50% of that. And it's just, you said it, you used a great word for it, of it being soulless. And it's like, yeah, because EA is just like, here's what we want. DICE do it. And I remember reading after it came out from DICE, or EA themselves, were like, we wanted it to come out soon because we know DICE has a great reputation for fixing the game after it comes out. And it's like, that should not be their reputation.
No.
Like, or no, they didn't say it like that, but they were like, great community outreach. I'm like, but they have to do that because you don't let them do what they want to do.
Well, and honestly, like I said earlier, I think this is the worst supported Battlefield by a long shot. Like,
you're 100% right.
For it to take 6 months to get a scoreboard in the game is kind of insane. It just
3 months after Battlefield 4, we had our first DLC, and it was starting to get fixed. And there was already a scoreboard for that kind of, comparison. But like, you had 3 months later, you had 4 maps, 5 weapons, 2 new gadgets, and like 3 months. And the difference, I don't know how much of a difference this makes, but I am perfectly content with DICE just going back to standard edition and premium.
Yeah.
Just
absolutely.
I am fine. Like, if they do that for the next one, guess what? I'm paying for the standard. If anything, if I don't get into the beta, or if I see how the beta looks, to know my, idea of it. But like, realistically, if they blow that one out of the water and it's a masterpiece, it's like, yeah, I'll pay for the premium. I'll pay an extra $30-$40 because that's what we did back then. You did that for 3 and 4. You just paid for. I paid, or even Battlefield 1, you paid an extra $50. You got premium priority. You got some fancy skins, and then you just got to play the DLC as it came out. And I was like, that was their winning formula, and I don't know why it's strayed. I don't care about the live service model. I don't care for it. Just, here, Battlefield 6 is coming out. It's 5 DLC packs, 4 maps each, 5 new weapons. Just give us the numbers and I'll pay for it. I would rather do that than have to expect them to do for the next 4 years maps, content, weapons, game modes. Like, and I think that's just the thing of the industry at large. Like, I think that's just kind of what it is. Like, there's nothing that'll change until we decide, because I mean, we pay the money, right? Like,
yeah.
So yeah, but
so
I know you want to go to a lighter note.
Well, yeah, in a somewhat positive note, and this is going to be a weird one, and I'm going to have to like try to walk through this to some extent. So
treading water here.
It's a very strange one, because this is a company that I have made jabs at many of times, but at the end of the day, I still think that they are reliable in putting out a quality product, and that would be Nintendo.
How did I know?
So,
How did I know?
I constantly bash on the stupid decisions they make. And by reliable, I don't mean being able to predict what they're going to do, because God knows what they're going to do at any given time. It is
Watch them come with the VR headset.
Right. Like, it is so
Like,
bizarre.
Yeah, just whack.
They do weird shit constantly. But I will say, when they put a game out, that game is usually 100% polished. Like, Breath of the Wild comes out. That game is large. There's a lot to do. And I don't remember seeing any complaints. Like, hardly any.
It works.
Mario Odyssey comes out. Works perfectly. Like, everything they put out, as far as whether it is for you or not, like, that's beside the point, because I know you're not a big Nintendo guy, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I will say that, like...
Get it out of the house.
Right.
Don't want it here. Make it leave.
And I'm iffy on it, right? Like, I enjoy some things that they do. I'm a huge Zelda fan. Huge Zelda fan.
Right.
So, yeah, I thoroughly enjoy Nintendo for that. I enjoy playing the Mario games and Mario Kart, Smash Bros, things of that nature. But at the end of the day, like, I would be remiss to say that they do not put out quality product for what you are getting. And I think I think some of that comes from that old mentality of, like, back to the SNES days, right? Where it is like, hey, this needs to be right out of the gate. If something does present itself after the fact, we'll fix it. And they're usually quick to do that. But I really don't remember any times where they had to go back in and really fix something major, right? And I think that's just impressive. I disagree with a lot of things Nintendo does. I loathe the fact that the Nintendo Switch is so underpowered, and I am desperately waiting to get my Steam Deck just so I have a handheld that can play something modern and be reasonable, right? Like, I use my Switch for a lot of indie games, and I use my Switch for Nintendo first parties, and that's about it. Yeah, and
you play Skyrim with it.
Right,
or,
like,
whatever's on there.
I don't. I'm not gonna play Doom on my Switch. Like, there's a better place for me to play Doom. I'm not gonna play even something like a Skyrim, right? Like, I'd rather play that on my PC, or even the Xbox version that you can at least halfway mod, right? Like, to some extent. But
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
I don't think they offer necessarily the best gaming experience console-wise, but I enjoy their IP. I think they do a good job with their first-party titles. Pokemon's in that weird spot where it's like a second-party title, but it's always like, whatever. But and those are pretty mainly miss for me.
Yeah, I don't really get it. Okay.
But it would be hard to sit there and objectively look at their titles and be like, no, they're bad. Like, they may not be your taste, but they do come out in a finished state that is impressive in this day and age of everybody putting something out that tends to be
half
broken,
polished.
So
not really done.
And like I said, that's a weird one for me, because at the end of the day, like, I have criticized them over and over and over and over and over, but they do good shit, and I would feel wrong to go through this whole episode and not mention them.
Yeah,
sure. I think they deserve that. Now, Yeah, and then Sony overall, I think also does a very good job.
Yeah.
I mean, we covered Naughty Dog, but I think Sony as a
Monica
whole,
Studio.
yeah, like
They
all
do
of their
God of War. Yeah.
all of their subdivisions within their large umbrella.
Whoever does Horizon. I
Yeah,
don't remember their name. Guerrilla Games.
Mhm.
Yeah, like they all do really good. Yeah, and like that's the funny thing is you brought up Nintendo, and I was like, I don't know why I always have to talk about Nintendo when I'm on this show. Like I always have something to say.
yeah,
I feel like I have to say something. But I will say, in to agree with you, is that whenever I see something about a Nintendo game, it is never about something not working. It is always
Right.
about a weird. It's a weird design choice, or like something like this. Like but I've never like opened up my phone and scrolled through and saw like a PC Gamer article talking about how like Breath of the Wild is filled with bugs. Right, or something like that. Like I never saw that, so like they're not for me. I don't like it. There's a Switch in this room, and I think every 6 seconds I think about just breaking it because it's like I just feel like I can't have it near me, like a bad omen. Like I just don't like them. I don't
That's
like
fine.
anything.
That's
I don't
fair,
like.
man.
I just can't do it. But like I've never heard anything bad about their development in terms of their games being unpolished when they come out, right? They're almost always, and I think that probably has to do with ease because it's all through them, right? It's a 100% streamlined process. It's developed by them, or the first party games, obviously developed by them, goes on a console by them. Like they know the ins and outs of it, and like all more power to you in that point. Like
Right.
100% great. I mean, I'm sure it's a lot harder for a game like DICE to make a game for Xbox One, PS4, Xbox Series X, PS5, and PC, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like I imagine that's a lot more difficult, but still, more power to them for that. There's nothing to take away from that. So yeah, and with Sony, yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of their first-party studios make great games.
Yeah.
Although Days Gone wasn't for me, but everything else,
that's fair, right?
everything else, everything that I've played in terms of a first-party game from Sony in the past 10 years, I have arguably enjoyed a bunch. Like all the Naughty Dog games are obviously up there. God of War took me a while to get into. I didn't really like playing it on the PS5, but when it came to PC, I bought it and finished it in the next 3 days. I loved it. Like, yeah.
You know
I love that.
You know what's really funny about all of this? We made the thumbnail beforehand, and I pulled like a bunch of logos from random companies all over the place. And almost none of them have been companies that we have really talked about in a super positive light. I just basically grabbed like all of the large ones. It wasn't meant to be clickbait. It just was like, hey, what's the big companies? And I started grabbing them and made like basically a sticker bomb.
Naming them. I'm naming them, and in my head I'm going like, these guys are not reliable anymore. I said Rockstar, and I was like, I said Rockstar and Naughty Dog, and I was like, those two are probably the biggest in terms of reliability. Everything else was like, I said Xbox, I said Activision Blizzard, I said EA. I'm like, all of these I'm saying, I'm like, none of these games are good. Like I'm thinking of like,
yeah, we're going to get somebody that hate clicks on this because of the thumbnail with that's in big bold letters, the most reliable game companies, and they're going to see Bethesda on there, fucking lose their mind and immediately go in here and start writing comments like, trust me, Bethesda wasn't brought up in either a positive or a negative light. Although if we were to bring them up, I imagine it would be mostly negative.
Mostly negative. It would not be positive in terms of the last 10 years. But hey, we got a view. So
that's right.
I'll reply to the comment if there's ever a hate comment about like these guys aren't reliable. Be like, oh, just listen.
Yeah,
you'll know. Like,
I need you to listen.
Coming from.
I need you to listen for like 30 seconds. That's all I need.
Yeah,
give me that view, baby. Come on.
just listen. Come on, just wait. And that's the good thing is that the whole 30 seconds is an intro. So they'll have to skip past, and we'll be like, we got the view.
Yep,
we did it.
You could sit there red in the face while we do this intro, and
then they're gonna get mad, type something angry, and it's like I'll just kind of be like, buddy, you need to listen to it because let me tell you, we're on your side.
Yeah,
we agree with you.
Thank you for the interaction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you for the click-through rate.
That's right. But I think, I mean, we could go on and on and on. But I think we covered a lot of or at least some of the heavy hitters, and really just kind of tried to cover a lot of ground in a relatively short period of time here. But
with positives and negatives.
Yeah, with positive and negatives, cover both sides, and
I think we did a
even
good
the
job.
negatives, I don't think we're overly negative. Like, it could have gone real downhill real quick, but
I could have said some things.
yeah,
about
that's
EA,
right.
guys.
Like,
I
think
gone real bad.
I think DICE and EA caught the most flack, but right now,
Sure.
rightfully so.
I think so. Yeah, I think
but-
they deserve it.
As we go to close this out, Evan, you want to tell the fine people again where they can find you, in case they skip through the intro but want to listen to the outro.
They want to hear the outro. Yeah, they skipped through because they wanted to hear the nonsense they thought we were gonna say.
Right.
Yeah, you can find me and my good buddy Nick. We host the WASD and Beyond podcast. That goes live every Wednesday morning and Friday morning, and you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Beyond WASD, and our podcast name is WASD and Beyond, so you can find that on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to see some of the other stuff we're a part of, go to spawncamp.co, where you'll be able to find Diggity, ourselves, Bill Bros, and OBO.
Nice. As Evan said, you can find us at
Kinda plug,
spawncamp.co and find all our shows there. I'm just going through the list, right? You
Right,
can
yeah.
join our community Discord. That link
That's
will
right.
be in the description on this, as well as all over social media. We've been kind of blasting it to the world right now, trying to get people to join in there and have a good time. Next week, Diggity's gonna have a little bit of an ad in the middle. I'm not gonna say anything yet because our technical date hasn't started. But we'll have an ad. I'm sorry, but hey, we gotta eat too. But
That's
it
true.
is cool. So we'll get that out there next week. But yeah, you can find Diggity on Twitter at Diggity Podcast. You can also find us on Instagram at Diggity Podcast. And we'd love to have you, hop in and comment on things, get in the Discord.
Hate comment.
Yeah, hate comments about how much we're idiots and don't know what we're talking about, even though you didn't actually listen to the show.
But you gave us that view. And
That
that's what
you
matters.
gave us that view, and for that, I appreciate you. But
Yes.
with that, we will see you next time. Thank you.